let's talk about Rashan Gary, who is a really unique player, someone who doesn't get talked about a ton. He is someone who, this guy comes out every year in college of the freak athlete who doesn't have the best numbers in college, but it's, if we can just fix the technique, we will get a star player. Usually, this player's technique maybe only sees marginal improvements, and they never become what the team that drafted them hopes that they do become. Rashan Gary is the exception. Rashan Gary did figure it out, and we're going to talk about kind of his technique in this video and talk about what makes him so good, but he did figure this stuff out and become an elite level edge rusher. Now, if you look at his just pure box score numbers, they might not suggest that. He's, had multiple 9-sack seasons, never had double-digit sack seasons though, but there's still a lot he does really well. And so that's what I wanted to dive into in this video and talk about just what he brings to the table. Real quick before I do that though, I do have a movie channel if you're interested in that kind of thing. Tend to, give reviews on the popular movies that have just come out. I also do some tier list on there. I have a breakdown of a Mad Max scene from Fury Road that I really liked. So if that seems like something you're interested in, the link is in the description below. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the film. Let's start off with this play. It's kind of an interesting play. So the way this is going to work is that the right tackle for New Orleans is going to be blocking him one-on-one, but not exactly. There is going to be a halfback on this play who's going to start off blocking and then run a route. So again, called a chip. See this relatively frequently, especially when it's a guy like Gary. When this play begins, you see that right here, okay, the chip is doing what it's supposed to do, right? Not allowing Gary to easily get more towards the outside. You're essentially forcing the edge rusher more towards the middle to where a bull rush could still work just as well, but bull rushes are tough to pull off at the NFL level. And if you then do try for another move, like a outside move or even an inside move, usually it's just going to take longer for you to be in position because you can't go to the outside right away. But watch Gary kind of just go with one quick push and then is able to get to the outside and still gets a sack. That's not a good play. That's like an elite level play. That's one of those plays that the good pass rushers don't pull off. I don't mean hey, don't always pull off, lack consistency. No. If you're an all right pass rusher, that's just not something you can do. You're not something you're capable of. For Gary, the fact that he is able to pull a play like that off really just goes to show, why he is so valuable. Again, if you think about why Gary was drafted in the first place, he was someone who was, a great physical player. Well, these are the types of plays where that comes in handy. Also heading over to something like this, Gary is going to be going up one-on-one against a New Orleans Saints right tackle here. That's the way this play is designed to work. And when it begins, this time no chip or anything, it is just a pure one-on-one matchup. You see right here, again, this doesn't seem to be an awful situation for New Orleans right here, but here is what's, I think what makes Gary Rashan Gary is a lot of times you see these types of players, the Gary archetype come out of college, which is this elite physical freak who maybe doesn't have the best technique. The conventional wisdom is, okay, well, let's just draft a guy and then we'll teach him the technique. And once we teach him the technique, we'll be great. But of course, the issue is it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes guys just never learn the technique. Sometimes, guys have been taught the technique and still just don't really have it down. But watch Gary get that right arm over Ryan Ramczyk and get to the quarterback for a sack. And yes, you heard me correctly. That's Ryan Ramczyk, who he was going up against, one of the game's best tackles. So being able to do that, very impressive. Also heading over to something like this, what's going to happen is, again, it's going to be a one-on-one block here. This time it is not Ryan Ramczyk who's going to be blocking. It's actually an offensive lineman who's lined up as a tight end. You have an extra offensive lineman here. He's going to be one blocking Gary. So when his play begins, watch Gary move very far towards the outside, which seems like just a move of, hey, I don't know where the help is going to be. There's a lot of linemen here. Let me try to get more towards the outside to guarantee a one-on-one matchup. And this has worked in multiple ways. One, you did get that one-on-one matchup. But two, you see him getting far enough over to where the tackle can't really reach over at all. In an ideal world, if you're, we'll just call him a right tackle, even though that's not exactly the way it is, because he's essentially the right tackle. Typically, it's the right hand that is so important, getting it all the way over towards the left side of Gary's body. So that's, closest towards the right side of the screen. That's where you want it to be. You see, he's barely got his right arm on the left side or on the right side of Gary's body. That's just not where you want it to be at all. Because of that, Gary blows by him and gets to the quarterback for yet another sack. Poor Jameis Winston is getting clobbered out there by what Gary can do. And then there's also stuff like this, where what's going to happen is this is once again going to be a one-on-one matchup right here, and so watch what happens. When this play begins, you see the explosiveness Gary has to get towards the edge right here, get towards the outside. This is a good situation, but it's not an amazing situation either for Gary. And the reason why it might not be quite as good as you would originally think is because all that the 77 has to do here for the Raiders is push Gary behind Garoppolo. You push him more towards the right side of the screen, and you're going to be okay. The issue is that Gary's just a really difficult guy to do that with because, again, he is such a physical freak. Watch as Gary is really hardly moved, and while, yes, maybe it took a little bit longer to get to the quarterback, not much longer, and Gary was able to make that play. So, again, really good stuff here by Gary to pull this kind of thing off. And then also just stuff like this, where what's going to happen is it's going to be, there's someone who's going to be chipping Gary towards the, for the offense right here. So it's not just a pure one-on-one block, but it will eventually become one, similar to the first play. This time it's an even better chip. I mean, really good job by the tight end, getting in position to, really just slow Gary down. As a tackle, you're in perfect position right here to try and make a play. Although watch Gary kind of shift that on a dime, going more towards the outside, which the tackle was not really ready for, because again, there was a chip. You didn't really think that was going to happen. So Gary's willing to take a little bit of extra time to get to this spot, because again, watch him barely get held down, and he is able to get the quarterback hit. Nearly got a quarterback sack there as well. So just again, being able to get towards the outside so consistently is just so valuable. So yeah, I do think there's a lot to like about Gary. Now, I would say that there is sometimes some consistency with him. Like I said, you see the splash plays, and they just look so awesome. He still does have consistency. I'm not saying he doesn't. He still is a pretty consistently good player. I think you would just hope to get like a little bit better if he was going to be put up with the top guys, even like a Max Crosby or a Nick Bosa. Kind of why I would still put those guys ahead of Gary is I feel like some of it has just been Gary's had injuries over his career, but like, I would like to see a bit more of consistency with that kind of stuff. But again, that's my only real knock, and it's not even really a massive knock. It's just like that's what's, in my opinion, separates him from the top of the line guys. But he's still like nearly there, and on his best day isn't just the top of the line guy. He's like the top of the line guy. His ceiling on these types of things typically is amazing. So yeah, as a whole, I'm a big Rashan Gary fan. I think he's a really good player and a really valuable piece of what the Packers do. And one thing also I should have mentioned at the beginning of the video, because I'm sure there's angry comments already on the channel, but I talk about the numbers. It's worth mentioning he's not a huge snap count guy. So like he's getting 9 sacks, but only on like 650 snaps, which isn't a low number, but it's not like he's not out there every snap either. He would be a double-digit sack guy, you would assume, if he was out there every snap, although also his efficiency would fall a little bit. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on Gary. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.